A system is repeatable, it's flexible, it's environment or lifestyle supported, it's realistic, it's low friction, and it's designed for stress. So, when we're building a system, we want to build from who we are. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. Before we get into today's episode, I want to make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, if you don't want to miss any content that's being dropped, make sure you hit that notification bell as well. I also want to know who are the people you want to hear from on this show and what topics would you like me to continue to cover. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now, let's get into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. Happy New Year. I'm so excited that you are here, and you should be as well. You've taken this time out for yourself to learn something about your physical and mental health. And if you're new here, welcome. Today is probably one of the most important basics. This January, we're talking about basics, basic building blocks that you are going to build off of. And today we're starting with setting goals and creating systems. This is such an important conversation because everyone at this time of year is goal setting, goal setting, goal setting. They're goal setting, they're, creating this, end result that they want to lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. However, that means zero. That means zero if we are not creating systems. And that's something I want to talk about today. Now, I want you guys to know that I recorded this and I was just blabbing along, and then the thing just stopped. So I am so sad about that because I had some fire freaking ideas during that episode. So for me, systems are so incredibly important because, as I talked about on last episode, people don't consider how much is involved in achieving a goal. They think it's just eat less. Technically, yes. But what is the system I have to have in place in an effort to do that? I need to learn to use a food scale, track that food in a tracking app. I need to learn how to get that food to my fucking house. I need to learn how to make food or find a program to get food. I need to learn how to prep for events. I need to learn how to prep for meals out. I need to learn how to handle deviation from the plan. I need to learn how to handle feelings of hunger. I could go on and on, right? The goal is weight loss, but the system is how we get there. And for a lot of you, you're very goal-oriented people. I have women who are my clients that hopefully listen to this podcast. I work with multiple surgeons, multiple judges, multiple executives. I work with C-level clients. I work with business owners. You're goal-driven. And for you, you've accomplished most everything in your life from an impeccable work ethic. You push and push and push, and you've accomplished it. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when we're pushing, something's always going to give. And for women, especially women in these high level positions, it's their routine around their care that gives. Because oftentimes, if you think about someone who studied to become a doctor, they obviously had to have a system around studying to accomplish that, plus test taking, plus all that, right? And the more I study, the better, right? The more information, the better for most people. Depends on the brain. My neurodivergent brain does tap out at a certain point. However, you get my drift. But when it comes to building systems around your body, more is not always better. And so for those individuals who are still very goal oriented, which is my audience, we also have to have a different view around how we accomplish goals, especially when it comes to our bodies and our self-care. But let's talk about the pattern, right? So what people oftentimes do at this time of year is a lot of people feel very motivated. They have this idea of what things are going to look like. The problem, though, is that oftentimes their belief is what I talked about last episode, is a fantasy. You've kind of created this movie in your mind around how this is all going to play out, not taking into consideration life. And if you don't have a system in place that's durable, then you're going to stop doing the things, which is ultimately going to make you stop seeing results. This is where motivation dips, because if I'm not seeing results, why would I be motivated to do something? And then you abandon the goal. And for those of you like myself who are very goal oriented and this is new for you, cue the shame, baby. Cue the shame. I should have done more. I need to be more disciplined. I need to have more willpower. What the fuck is wrong with me? I have heard it all from the most accomplished women in the world. I have heard it all. They talk so negatively to themselves. And just like I talked about on last episode, working from a place of punishment is not going to work, right? Your goal, you didn't fail at your goal. You failed because the system that was required for that goal to be accomplished was never established, or that system didn't support you specifically establishing that goal, because you could use someone else's system, I guess, right? And so goals, what we're going to talk about this today is like there are outcomes and we're going to set them. And systems are the stepping stones to how we get there. Okay. But let's talk about where people go wrong when it comes to goal setting. So the biggest mistake that I see people do is that like magical thinking, is this idea of, what this is going to look like for them. So they just imagine themselves thin, frolicking on a beach, and they're already there. Or they imagine themselves as being able to accomplish a system that is unattainable for them. I did talk about this again. Some of this is repetitive from last episode, but we'll get to, once we get to the meat, it's all unique. But this idea that if my goal is elaborate and big and makes this huge change, then I'll have even more motivation, as if like the bigger the better, the bigger the more motivation. No. That is mistake number one. Mistake number two is, again, creating systems that are rooted in our distortion, creating systems around perfectionism, your all or nothing thinking, shame and punishment, creating systems when you compare them to other people. That's a big one. I'll talk about that in a second. Creating systems around people you follow on social media. So that would be a comparison. But I'll tell you guys, just because someone is fit or has lost weight doesn't mean they're an expert in behavioral change or psychological needs. They probably don't even know a lot about themselves. They're probably using a system that maybe they could teach you. However, their life, their lifestyle, their energy, their time, their schedule, it's all going to be very different for you. And so when you feel like you failed because you followed your favorite social media influencer's system, again, it's just going to come back to you feeling shame, you feeling not good enough. But in all reality, that system didn't work for you, because again, a lot of people, a lot of social media influencers do not have education or expertise in elite behavioral change and psychological input. So keep that in mind. The last one is we're expecting willpower to constantly be there through the entire process. Think of willpower as a mood, right? Willpower is a mood. Like, I think of it that way. It kind of comes and it goes. I don't experience willpower all of the time. However, when I have a system that can still stay going, right? Still be running, even when that willpower is gone, that creates an infrastructure that is durable. What do I mean by durable? I want you to think of a palm tree in a storm, right? When I say durable, I don't mean stiff and rigid. I mean flexible as well. A palm tree in a storm is standing, right? And it's kind of flexible, going from one to the other. It's bending. It's bending. It might lose a couple leaves, but once it's done, that baby's propped back up, right? You are the palm tree. You are the palm tree. And your systems need to be durable, but also flexible. So just a quick recap of why the brain, rejects change. Again, we talked about it wants to stay with the predictable. It wants to stay with what is safe. But one thing I didn't mention on last episode is it wants to keep its own patterns. And for me, oftentimes when I'm working with clients, I'm not looking at the outcome, the binge, for example. I'm looking at the pattern and understanding the pattern of how we got there. And through their own words, I can show them the pattern. Let me give you an example. I have a client who will eat specific types of foods when she's quote unquote being good or following the plan. One thing I said to you guys last episode that I think I want to reiterate often is that when we're trying to lose weight, we don't have to change the foods that we're eating. We have to change the portions of those foods. And if we use that sustainable eating quadrant and we change the portion of those foods, we're good to go. But for a lot of people, they have these specific types of foods. And, they're eating their specific types of foods. They're avoiding the foods that they also enjoy that are pleasurable. And when they get to a place where they have that pleasurable foods, they then have another set of rules around what it means to have pleasurable foods. So then their set of rules are, I then eat all of that serving of cookie dough, cookies, whatever that is. And okay, the outcome is I've now eaten all the Oreos in the entire package, right? I'm not going to just focus on the fact that we eat all the Oreos. I need to look at the pattern. So the pattern is I restrict food. And then I'm going to go a little bit further. What story are you making up about restricting food? I'm good. I'm motivated. I have willpower. I'm better than other people. Okay? And then when I have the food, the pleasurable food, what story do you make up about that? Right? And so on and so forth. This is just a very simplistic pattern that I pull out from people, but this is what I do. I am an expert in pattern recognition. And it is by far one of the most important things that people miss. They look at the outcome, but they have no idea the consistent patterns that get them there. That pattern that I just talked about will keep you feeling frustrated, thinking you're constantly in a calorie deficit when you're not, right? It can be a macro and a micro pattern in so many ways. But when we are not realizing the patterns that aren't serving us, then we obviously can't change them. So it comes back to that idea of making what we need to make conscious. The reason why is that when we're setting a goal without building that supportive system and managing the patterns think of the system as kind of like pattern management. Your brain is going to override. It's going to think danger. It's going to think overwhelm, threat, and it's going to do what it does. Procrastinate, self-sabotage, focus on shame. It will avoid, it will distract you. It will quote unquote forget. I forgot that I could do that. People do that a lot. It also will numb out. And the system, the reason why this happened is the system required for the goal to be accomplished, it never existed. So if you can't achieve the goal without the system. So let's talk about that. Here we go. So first things first, we're going to write what we call SMART goals. Now, you probably heard this on other podcasts, but take my perspective of a SMART goal setting and see if it differs at all. So SMART goals is an acronym that helps us to create goals that are more attainable. Because what ends up happening is people will just have these vague, broad goals. And it doesn't create kind of a tunnel vision for the brain. It's just saying, I'm going to eat healthier. Well, what does that mean? Because eating healthier for someone who's recovering from an eating disorder is going to look different than, your average lady, than someone who has an autoimmune issue, right? So your brain needs to focus. It kind of needs bumpers like you would at a bowling alley, okay? So S in the SMART goal is specific. I just did goals with my clients, and one that I had to send back was I want to, I remember how she said it, like basically avoid added sugar. That was a very broad goal. So I went back to her and I said, look, we want to make this specific over the next 4 weeks. Here's the amount of added sugar that you have in your diet currently, estimated, because I don't believe my FitnessPal shows added versus natural sugars. I'll have to look, but I did the math. And here's what you are on average. Where would you like to be over the next 4 weeks? I want to stay between 30 and 40 grams of added sugar. Great. That is the specific goal. Another way you can do specific goals, I want to strength train 3 days a week. I will add protein at my breakfast. I will meditate for 10 minutes 3 times a week. Okay? So very specific goals. Not I want to meditate, not I'd like to work out. Great. I'd like to win the lottery. I need to buy the ticket specifically to accomplish that goal, right? So you could hear actually now moving into the second letter, measurable. So you heard me say, not only do I want to work out, I'm going to do it 2 times a week for 20 minutes. We're not just focusing on vibes here. Like, I think I did it. Like, it felt like I did it. We need something that is observable, that's tangible. You could write it out. I'm looking at this little whiteboard calendar that I have. You could just check. You could put a color on the days that you accomplished that thing. And you could have your goals written on the side, right? And say, okay, this week I was at 100%. I accomplished my 2 workouts for 20 minutes 2 times this week. Great. But say that you do that all month. That's whatever system you have in place, which we'll get to, is working for you. But if you don't, then we just need to reevaluate the system. Okay. So measurable is incredibly important for my clients. I have so many ways to measure. They actually, all of their workouts are in my app, and everything is specific for them. And they have, once they're done with the workout, they log it checks it off. Same with any tasks, any meditation or journaling, anything. I can make custom tasks or habits. So if we're trying to drink 60 ounces of water, specific, measurable, right? They can check it off and we can see how consistent they were in doing that. Because some people will say, I want to track 90% of my meals. I can see in their MyFitnessPal their meals for the month and say they missed 1 or 2. They're in it. We're in our 90%, right? So for us as a coaching program, everything we're doing is very measurable. I can see it. And that's important because, again, it's not about saying you're good, you did it. It's about recognizing if what we're doing is working for this person. System, okay? But coming back to goals. Next, it needs to be attainable. So you hear me say this all the time. Like, we're not doing this unrealistic bullshit. One of my favorite clients, she loves lists and she loves checking things off, but she gets so overwhelmed. And this past week, she sent me a list and I said, no. Is this realistic for you? And she goes, actually, and she did prove me wrong. She goes, some of these things are already easy. So I just added the things that I'd like to work on with the things I'm already doing. And I was like, okay, girlfriend. And I was a very proud coach in that moment. But for a lot of people, I'm like, is this realistic? When you jump from, as the example was in last episode, 0 workouts to 6, that's not realistic for you. Okay. So is it attainable? And is it relevant? So important. Is this something I value? Is this something that what is the reason I want to accomplish this? I'll tell you, I work with some providers where we exchange services, and I notice that those individuals are not as dedicated to their work with me. It actually is kind of frustrating because I put the same amount of effort into their work as my other clients, and they're not giving me that same responsibility back. And so it's because they're not paying for it, right? They're receiving this, but they're not treating it as someone who comes in and says, I want to be able to work out 2 times a week for 20 minutes because my goal is to be able to have energy to play with my grandchildren. My goal is to be able to get up off the couch without needing assistance. My goal is to have energy, start my morning off with something good. My goal is to rewrite the negative body image patterns that my mother and my grandmother had so my daughter can live with body confidence. Make it relevant. Make it mean something to you. If you're just trying to change because you're trying to punish yourself because you don't feel good enough, that's not relevant to you. What makes sense? I want to create a system where I'm eating healthy and moving my body because that's what my body needs, on top of rest, recovery, and some fun foods. Make it relevant. And last but not least, time bound. Give the brain a container. People, I don't know who taught people this, but people think they need to be in a calorie deficit for like a long fucking time. Now, for my clients listening who have been in a calorie deficit for quite some time, I often ask you, is it time to get out of this deficit? And depending on what you say, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm only giving it 2 more weeks. For not seeing the results, we're taking you out of this. Why? Because you're just kind of in a calorie deficit. As I said in a TikTok, your brain is in the calorie deficit game, but your behaviors are on the bench. And you're just constantly in it. If we don't have an end timeline, then we're not going to put as much effort into it. Just like the person who's not paying for the program is not going to put as much effort into it. If we make it urgent, we make it something that says, okay, I'm doing this for 12 weeks. I can do anything for 12 weeks. We give our brain a container. The other part of that too is that it makes us like focused instead of thinking we have all of this time. It actually creates a smart sense of scarcity, right? To say, we're doing this. We're going to do this for 8 weeks. And not even scarcity. I think it's a little bit of both. But it's also saying it's 8 weeks. I could do anything for 8 weeks. But it's also only 8 weeks. Get what I'm saying there? So give it a time. Every single one of my clients, at the end of their SMART goals, they're going to set the date that we're going to accomplish that. When I'm doing SMART goals with clients, this is how I set it up. It's a reflection that comes in the app, or a check-in, I would say, for my group coaching clients. I'm going to ask them what were their goals for the previous month, what wins did they have, what were the barriers. Then from that, they'll create their next month's goals, because again, we're looking at the system, and based on what were our wins, we want to do more of. What were our challenges, we want to be flexible and change that system in an effort to achieve them. So that is the way that we accomplish SMART goals in my company. But SMART goals are very, very important because it gives the brain those bumpers or a place to focus, right? We're saying, find this, find when I'm doing this, find when I accomplish the 20-minute workouts, find when I put the protein on the plate, find ways to make that easier. We're giving it a very specific cue rather than this broad cue of like, I think I'm doing that. That's not strong enough. So that's SMART goals. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about building sustainable systems. This is, again, I know I'm repeating myself, is where you give, it's not even about accomplishing something. This is transformation. This is recalibration for you. This isn't about it's no longer about like, I accomplished that thing. Because what does that mean? Does that mean that you go back to like the old thing? No. When we're talking about our health, okay, so for example, if I, in studying for medical school, I graduate medical school. Yes, I'm still practicing what I learned in medical school, but it's going to look a lot different, right? It's not going to be, the studying part of it is kind of not gone per se, but when it comes to like our health, we actually do need to continue those systems. We need to eat relatively the same way. We need to exercise in relatively the same way with some flexibility, if that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense of what I'm trying to say there. This is why I need to have notes. So a system is repeatable, it's flexible, it's environment or lifestyle supported, it's realistic, it's low friction, and it's designed for stress. So when we're building a system, we want to build from who we are, okay? Instead of this shameful, I need to lose weight, have to stop binging. We want to build from an identity. I am someone who values nourishing my body. I am someone who's learning to listen to my hunger and fullness cues. The identity piece is incredibly important because oftentimes we think of our ideal selves as something we need to accomplish. And that's true, that this system will help you accomplish that ideal version of yourself. But we also have to think about ourselves as someone who values that, someone who is working on that, because it's not black or white. You are someone who values eating healthy or nourishing your body. That's true. You may not have the system yet in place to do it, but you value it. So I want you to think about, rather than shaming and punishing myself, how can I use what I already know about myself? I value movement. I know movement. I value movement. It's important. I also value rest. That's also important. I value a calm nervous system. These are all things you value. We may not have them yet, but start with that identity piece. The next is making your systems like stupid simple. Okay. So if our goal is to go to the gym 2 times a week, specific, I need to create a system to make that goal easy to accomplish. So if I wake up and I don't have anything set out, probably that might be the first place I start. Or for some of you, if you don't have a good sleep routine the night before and you're scrolling on TikTok until midnight, maybe that's where you start to create the system. Think about what you need, but keep it simple. You don't have to make it elaborate, okay? So something simple will be, okay, I need to get, and this would actually create a new goal. I need to be lights out by 10 p.m. So then the system would be, okay, that's the goal. That's the person I want to be, and I value going to sleep at 10 p.m. Let's backtrack on how we get there. Well, I finish dinner at 7 p.m., so I will allow myself between 7 and 8 to get on my phone for 20 minutes. By 8 o'clock, my phone goes on the charger in the bathroom. Keep it simple. Doesn't have to be, I don't know, put it on the charger in the bathroom away from you. I, do my bedtime routine. I'm in bed, lights out by 10. Just keep it simple. Or for some people, having the clothes laid out is still not as simplistic as it should be. For some people, I will not only have their clothes laid out, I will make them set them up next to the coffee because they get their coffee every morning. So if I can habit stack is what that is called, put their clothes by the coffee. Once they turn on the coffee pot or they put their little K cup in, they put those clothes on and they're ready to go to the gym. Keep it very simple. The system doesn't need to be elaborate. So really thinking about what is this most simple change that I can make to accomplish that goal. For some, that 2 minutes or 2 workouts, 20 minutes a week, keeping it simple means I set up a small space in my basement or my house with my equipment, and that's where I work out. Keep it simple. Okay. The other part too, as I've already talked about in regards to attainable, is always keeping those goals keeping them small, right? Because small is repeatable, it's sustainable, and of course it creates progress. In regards to system, obviously, as I've already said, we want to build it into your environment. In your environment, you guys, not somebody else's. Stop watching these fucking idiots who are 22 years old. Get ready with me as I wake up and I, drink my pee. No, we're done with that. You're not 22. You're not a 22-year-old fitness influencer who has a 6-pack abs. So why are you trying to act like your system could possibly match theirs? That is not the environment that you live in. So stop trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Look at your life now. Why did I say now? Because y'all be trying to compare yourself to 22-year-old you. That's not who you are. That's not the season that you are in. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Congratulations, you're not the 22-year-old self that you were. You're not in that season. So why are we trying to create a system in a season that no longer is available to us? We need to create it around our environment now, who we are now, not who we were pre-pregnancy, not who we were during pregnancy. I talk about this a lot with my pregnant clients. Not even who we were postpartum first baby. Postpartum second baby looks different. We have 2 kids now. Right? Not who we were when we were 35, when now we're 45 and we're going through perimenopause. The system needs to be different. And when I'm talking about the difference in the system based on your mental health, your stress load, your work changes based on your time, your energy, your constraints, your responsibilities. The system needs to match that. A different system may have worked for you at a different season of your life. Great. Take from that rather than trying to duplicate a previous system from a previous season. Take the fact that you created a system that worked for you then, figure out how you made that, how you accomplished that, and use that perspective to create your system now. Get it? If you accomplish that then, it's not the behaviors. How did you set yourself up for success then? Take that same motivation into now, but adapt it to your current reality. Okay? So important, you guys. So fucking important. And then we want to create rhythms, right? And like I said about the palm tree is flexible, right? It's not rigid. It's kind of dancing with the storm. This is what we want our systems to be. We're dancing when stress hits us. We've created things that are so durable, okay? And your rhythm needs to, again, make sense for you. My rhythm makes sense for me. I do not want to work out. I'd probably force myself to work out in the afternoons, but if I can just get it done first thing in the morning, great. But for some of my clients, their rhythm is actually I really like doing it at lunchtime. I feel more energized, right? And the flexibility of that is let's go back to our goal of 2 strength training, 2, I've messed this up multiple times. 2 20-minute strength workouts. We're not saying they have to be on Wednesday and Friday. We're saying, nope, I'm going to accomplish them Monday through Friday, right? And having flexibility of one thing that you guys will see a lot more on my social media is meal prep light type of meals, because when people think of meal prep, they think they have to do, again, what the fucking influencers are doing, this overhaul. I don't have to, again, I need to like do a documentary on influencers, like background, because I have the ability to do all of that. I choose not to. I am a meal prep light queen where I'll prep like bonza pasta and some chicken, maybe. Mark actually does the chicken. I will prep bonza pasta and have it in the fridge so then I can make my chicken salad from that, my chicken Caesar pasta. I have this like chicken Parmesan Alfredo crock pot dealio that I found on TikTok. And I might make my Philly cheesesteak pasta, right? So 4 different meals, but I already have the pasta prepped. Prep light. Doesn't have to be full prep. Rhythm also looks like those minimums that we talk about often, just rather than the maximum or the things we'd like to do, those are still in our view, but also saying, if all else fails, these are my minimums. These are my non-negotiables, right? Walking is a great part of that. Breath work, things that are easy, things you know you can do. Be the palm tree. You are the palm tree. Okay, this next part is really important is in regards to like removing friction or barriers from your situation. I've already touched on some of these, but I thought it was important to kind of lay it out. So we're going to remove friction in 3 layers. Okay, very important. So again, we want to make the habit easier. So we're going to keep the equipment accessible. We're going to, prep the things we need ahead of time. And that could be very different. That could be the clothes. That could be the bonza pasta. That could be I just had something in my head and I forgot it. That could be your sleep mask and some melatonin, right? Prep things ahead of time. Oh, the clothes. That's what it was. Like prep. Did I say that already? Anyway, create the workout space. So physical friction, what's physically getting in my way, okay? It could be you want to go to the pretty gym that all the celebs go to, but that motherfucker is 45 minutes from your house. That's friction. That's physical friction. Why don't you just go to the like mom and pop shop where no one knows who you are down the road that's 4 minutes away? Get it? Physical friction. Why don't you, let's think of another one. If you're traveling for work, instead of forcing yourself to try to get into the hotel gym, why don't you create a workout you can do in your room? This is something I talk about all the time. I do for my clients. Physical friction. Okay. So what is physically standing in my way? If I don't have equipment, I buy equipment, right? Or I learn to create body weight workouts that I can progressively overload. Okay. Do I have a place to store my food prep if you are someone who's going to meal prep? If not, I probably need a place for that. Do I have a crock pot? Right? Do I have the things, or like, do I need to purchase things or obtain things? And then what do I need to push out of the way? Next is mental friction. One of my favorites. We want to remove the overthinking. Okay. Decide ahead of time when. So again, it doesn't have to be rigid. We can say Monday through Friday. Okay. One of my favorite things to resolve mental friction is to create a prep plan. We'll say, I will pre-plan 3 breakfasts in my Fitness Pal, or I will prep 1 breakfast that I'll eat 5 out of the 7 days this week. Or I will prep my lunch for work at night. So that's actually physical and mental prep at the same time. Mental prep, have a plan for workouts. This is so important Because if you don't have a plan, what happens? Mentally, you're lost. You're just kind of doing things. You don't have a plan. Having a plan, a smart, intelligently written out, well-faced program is so important for you. Having the templates, the videos, the instruction, have that. And then, of course, mentally, having mental strategies, your go-tos to help you ride the wave of emotion. Maybe you have a specific decompression meditation that you listen to, right? Maybe you have something that allows for you to make things like, I think of like systems within systems, like having templates of things that you use. I'm trying to think of something that I do in my daily life, like where it's not like constantly fresh decisions. I know, oh, here's a good one. Instead of like, because I walk each morning, I walk the dog, and we have like 3 routes depending on our time, right? So rather than just being like, oh my God, like I've got to hurry and like get into this route, which makes me frustrated, it makes me mentally overloaded, I choose the shorter route. So again, you'll see a little overlap between the physical and the mental, which is great. The last one is emotional friction. So the perfectionism trap, like asking myself, like, what meaning am I making out of this thing? What's the smallest next step that I can take? And a brain will say, that's not enough. That's not enough. Catch that. Catch that friction, right? How can this be easier for me, not harder? Those are really 3 very important questions, especially number 1. What meaning am I making out of accomplishing or not accomplishing this? That by itself will dictate your outcomes. I say it all the time. Your beliefs dictate your behaviors. Your behaviors dictate your outcomes, which make you feel a certain way about yourself that makes that belief stronger or weaker. Always be looking at, even when it comes to emotional and mental friction, I like to have, this is a template. This is a good one. I have some like reframes that are constantly blasting in my head. Well, I don't even need to constantly blast them anymore because I've reframed for so long, but we're not doing this right now. If I'm trying to like berate myself, only good things happen for me when I'm feeling unsafe. I am safe. That's another one. God is good at being good to me. There you go. Those, boom, boom, boom. I don't need to think of this like spectacular affirmation. We're not doing it right now. And I share it. A lot of my clients are like, I've heard that. I've said that to you. So that's a good one too. Your success requires less stress. It requires less stress, not more discipline. Because yes, discipline got us a lot in our life, and I understand that. But when it comes to your body and mind and worth, less stress is best. So goals, as we talked about, tell you where we're going. Systems determine how we actually get there. In 2026, this doesn't need to be that disciplined, burnt out, white knuckling version of yourself. It can be very supportive, and you can still be equally, if not more successful than you already are. When you pair clear goals with sustainable systems and low friction environments, your consistency is going to be through the roof. You are going to be unfreaking stoppable. I promise you that. If this is something that you want to work with myself and my team on, check out that clarity call link below, you guys. I am taking one-to-one clients only. My coaches are doing the group calls and also our one-to-one coaches, specific coaches themselves. Coach Liv is who I'm saying coaches because I'm going to be expanding in the near future. So if you are listening to this, whenever you're listening to this, just know that it may not be Liv. Liv is also a licensed mental health professional as well as a personal trainer and nutrition coach. So she is fully qualified in doing the work. But check out that clarity call link below. If this is your first time listening to this, this is going to be a full series on the basics of being the baddest motherfucking person you can be. Because you already have accomplished in so many areas of your life. We want to make success look as good as it feels, but feel as good as it feels physically. Please follow this podcast wherever you're listening to this, and or subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you love this information, share this with your people. This is incredibly important. Share it with your mom groups, share it with your business group, share it with your gals. And if you'd like me to speak to any of those groups, I am for hire. And by for hire, I usually negotiate that. Lastly, if you love what you're hearing, please, I would love some 2026 testimonials or reviews. That's an incentive. Other than that, as I leave you walking into 2026, I hope that one thing remains the same, and that is remembering that what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye-bye.